Hello everyone, this is Paul, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make the laser effects like these. So we're going to be working in After Effects primarily, and I'm going to be using some Action Essentials stuff and just one asset from Action Essentials, so you could probably even get it online. It's just that spark effect. And then also we're going to be using optical flares, but once again, there is a way that you could do it without having to get optical flares. So let's go ahead and grab our footage. Which one am I looking at? Let's grab this one, go into new comp, and okay, so now we have our footage. I'm going to actually go into comp settings, and I'm going to scale this down to 1080p because I don't want to deal with 4K video. That's what I filmed this in, and 4K can be annoying and slow. So we're going to want to make sure we have our layer panel. Now the deal is with these lasers, the longer you spend on it and the more effort you put into it, the better it'll look. And if you go back and watch the film that I'm using the footage from, you'll notice that I got lazy at some points because you have to do all the lasers by hand using this method essentially. So let's make a new solid. We're going to do the flares first. So I just searched optical flares, but let's make the solid first. So it can be any color you want. That was just a right click and I made a new solid, and then we're going to take the optical flares plugin and we're going to put it on. Now if you aren't going to use optical flares, you can just use a white solid and make a circular mask around it and then apply a glow to it, and you can play around with that. I haven't played around with that myself, but you can certainly play around with that yourself. Okay, so this is going to be sort of the flare of the thing. So I made a preset for it, but essentially my preset is the tack light preset that comes with optical flares. I got rid of a lot of the unnecessary components in this side thing over here. I just got rid of like lens orbs and all that. I just hit hide, or I X'd it out or something, and then I saved it as a new preset. So I hid them. That's all I did. And then we're going to change the color over here to a bluish color. But you can see that that's how you change it if you wanted to do Empire or Droid lasers. And then we're going to hit over transparent. Okay, so this is a frame right before he has a recoil. So I'm going to say that right before the recoil happens is sort of the peak of the flare. So we're going to start to, let's get the brightness checked here, and let's bring it up as far as we're going to ever have it. That looks pretty bright. This is going to be the brightest point. Now we're going to go back 3 frames, and we're going to bring this down to 0. And remember, make sure you're doing keyframes. So you click this little stopwatch to start keyframing. And then we are going to go back to the peak, and then we're going to go 3 frames forward from that, and then also do a 0. What you should end up with is this little flash of light. And since he does sort of move his gun, the last component of this is we're going to check the position XY. We're going to get a keyframe on there, and then we're going to go forwards to where he moves his gun, and we're just going to move this flare onto his gun. This you can do if they have big amounts of recoil, and if it's a close-up shot like this one, it just makes it look a little better. Okay, so that's the flare. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go to right before the flare starts, and we're just going to drag this over. We're going to go right after it ends, and we're going to go Alt close bracket, and we could have done Alt open bracket to close this off as well. Okay, so there's our little flare. So let's go back to the peak right here, and we are going to create the laser, the beam itself. So let's create another new solid, doesn't matter what color, and then we are going to go over to search advanced lightning. Advanced lightning. There we go. Okay, so some people make this in Photoshop. Like you can just make the laser element in Photoshop, but I like advanced lightning because it's a little more interactive. So we are going to go to turbulence and set it to 0. We're going to line it up sort of, and what I did up here, by the way, sorry, I sort of have muscle memory because I've done this so many times, but I just changed it from directional to a strike. So sorry I didn't really highlight that, but that's all I did. We're going to bring this core radius all the way up, so this is going to change how thick the laser is. Now, if you are in 4K footage, this will not go higher than 40 pixels, or 40 whatever. I don't know what that's measuring, it might be pixels. It won't go bigger than this. So in a 4K, where everything's larger, you're going to have to actually scale up this entire layer. And I had to do that. So I'd have to drag the layer and physically make it larger, instead of just making the core larger. So now let's sort of line it up with a gun. I'm going to make it go relatively straight, and then we are going to do the final thing, which is adjust the glow settings. And you know, this is where you'd also change the color if you wanted a different color laser. In this case, blue is the color that we want. Let's just crank up the radius. Let's turn off the lens flare for a second so we can see what we're doing. I think that looks pretty good. And so you can sort of see why I like doing this over just creating this element in Photoshop. It does take more time. As I said, it'll look better the more time you put into it. This is another thing you can do. I'm going to show you. You can actually have decay. You can control the amount of decay. I have it backwards right now. But if you swapped these two, you could actually have it sort of decay in a little triangular pattern. That's kind of cool. It's cool if you want to do like a 3D type of effect, but for our purposes, we don't really need it. So the only thing left to do now is we're going to keyframe the origin and direction. So we're not actually going to move it using these. We're just going to make it, we're going to animate it going, getting smaller. So it's at its largest state right now. This is the frame right before he shoots. So that's the first keyframe, and then we're going to go back 2 frames, and I'm going to turn the lens flare back on, where the lens flare is really tiny, and we're just going to drag this all the way back until it's like barely visible. And then after that, we're going to go 1 frame back, and we are going to go Alt open bracket, and so that'll cut off the layer right there. Now once it's all the way out like this, we want to create another keyframe. This one is going to be, we're going to hit P, we're going to select the layer and hit P, and this will bring up position. We want to start a keyframe here, and then we want to go, I don't know, maybe like 4 or 5 frames. Let's try 4 frames. This will probably work. And then we're just going to go move it over there. And I noticed just now that the angle's a little off, so I might move it down a bit as well. And let's see if that works. Yeah, that works. So you want this line to sort of be parallel with the angle of this thing. That'll make it look a little more real. And that's much easier than taking those points and moving them manually by hand, because you could get it screwed up. So you can already sort of see it come into play. It already sort of looks like a laser, and I think we got the timing pretty good too. But once again, you can move these keyframes around in space and move them forwards or backwards, depending on how fast you want the laser to move. Okay, so now we have only one thing left to do, so let's go to the part where it's at its brightest, and we're going to go. Now this laser does look a little big. I would probably make it a little smaller if I was doing this for real, but it doesn't matter for our purposes today. So we're going to go and we're going to get one of these couch hit assets. Now, once again, this comes with Action Essentials, but you don't need Action Essentials for our, like, you won't need it. You could also use stuff like just go online and search free firecracker asset, and you should be able to find something. So I rotated that, I moved it in place, I made sure it was starting at the point where this is brightest, and then we're going to go into blend modes, and we're going to set the blend mode to either add looks kind of cool, screen is another one. You can just sort of play around with these. I'm going to do add this time, and then I'm also going to go select the laser, and we're going to go and change that to add. And you can see how it all sort of blends together. And then the last thing is, we want this thing to sort of fade off because it lingers too long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit T, have the layer selected, the asset layer. I'm going to go back a few frames, maybe like 3 frames, there we go. Hit a keyframe and then go all the way to the end and set the opacity to 0. And that'll just slowly fade it off, you can sort of see. And so this is the final laser. I gotta get rid of this. This is what it looks like. So that's how to do my lasers, or the way that I've come up with it. Once again, there are workarounds to the plugins that you might not have. But yeah, this is how I do lasers, and as you can see, it's kind of time consuming. Basically, for the 3D effect, for this one, I just made the laser layer 3D, and then I moved it in 3D space. And you can see they look very planar. You can tell that they're 2D objects in a 3D space. So it doesn't look very good, but it looks good enough for me. So I'll probably find a better way to do that at some point. But you can see that there's a lot of layers here. I probably could have grouped a lot of these together, but I didn't because, I don't know, I'm not a very organized person. Anyway, yeah, there's probably a better way to do this quickly, to batch these, you know, make them go really fast, but basically all I did was, for shots like this, I would just copy and paste these and then adjust each and every one to fit his gun, essentially. So yeah, that's how I made the lasers. I hope you enjoyed this video. Go and make your own lasers. I encourage you to go out and shoot something, and then, you know, send me a video of the laser that you made. And yeah, stay tuned for more videos. Let me know of any other effects that I've done in my videos that you'd like to know how to do. Yeah, this has been Paul, and I hope you enjoyed the video.